You pause and run your fingers lightly over the cool stone, imagining the pharaoh's sarcophagus resting somewhere below, sealed tight and waiting. It's humbling to realize that beneath your feet lies the final resting place of a man who ruled an empire, whose name was spoken with reverence and fear. As you light the last lamps and prepare to leave, a faint sound echoes, perhaps wind, or maybe the distant drip of water seeping through cracks. It's easy to let your mind wander in this stillness. You imagine the pyramid as a sleeping giant, breathing softly beneath the earth. Back outside, the stars are bright and endless. The sky feels like a vast ocean, and you can almost see the pharaoh's soul sailing among the constellations. You shuffle back to the camp, tired and quiet. The pyramid's mysteries feel a little closer tonight, but just as many questions remain. Like the lamp's flickering flame, there's always something waiting to be seen in the shadows. The sun has barely risen when your supervisor calls out, "To the crew. Today, you're assigned to the pyramid's mortar mixing team." It sounds like a simple job, just combining sand, water, and lime, right? But as you soon discover, the ancient Egyptians had their own secret recipe for the stuff that held the whole thing together. You trudge to the mixing pits, where heaps of sand and crushed limestone wait beside barrels of water. The mixture must be just right. Too dry, and it won't bind. Too wet, and it'll sag or crumble. Your muscles ache as you shovel and stir the gritty paste with wooden paddles, the sun baking your back. What's fascinating is the mystery, mortar element. Some scholars argue that the Egyptians used a form of early concrete, with ingredients that gave the mortar a self-healing property. Cracks could fill over time with crystallized minerals, making the structure more durable than simple lime mortar. This is still debated fiercely by experts. Was it magic, advanced chemistry, or just trial and error? You figure it's a bit of all three, mixed in with sweat and a stubborn refusal to give up. While you work, you notice a strange insect crawling over the mix, a tiny beetle with iridescent wings. The crew calls them scarabs, sacred to the god Khepri, symbolizing rebirth and the rising sun. Some workers claim that carrying a scarab charm brings good luck during the dangerous labor. You tuck a small shell-shaped stone you found earlier into your pocket for the same reason. Midday, the mortar is delivered up the ramps to the masons, who spread it between blocks with wooden trowels. The precision of their work is astonishing. Each joint perfectly filled, invisible from the outside. You marvel at how this paste binds millions of stones into one colossal mountain, a mountain that has endured for thousands of years. As the day wears on, a sudden dust storm kicks up, sweeping gritty winds across the plateau. You squint through the haze, your face covered in a rough cloth, feeling the sand scratch your skin. The storm lasts only minutes, but it reminds you how fragile and temporary human efforts can be. Yet, here you are, still mixing mortar, still building something meant to last forever. At the end of the day, you sit near the base of the pyramid, watching workers smooth the wet plaster on newly set casing stones. The sun dips low, casting long shadows, and the whole structure seems to glow softly in the evening light. You think about the layers, the stones, the mortar, the plaster, the carvings, all meticulously crafted, layer upon layer, like a giant story told in stone. And beneath it all, the work continues. The sun is dipping low again, and the atmosphere at the pyramid site shifts into a quieter, almost reverent mood. Tonight, your duty is to help with the ritual offerings. You're part of a small group carrying trays of bread, beer, figs, and incense to the small shrine near the pyramid's base. It feels odd to switch from laborer to participant in these spiritual ceremonies, but it's a reminder of how intertwined work and worship are here. You walk slowly, careful not to spill the offerings. The air is filled with the sweet, smoky scent of burning frankincense. Priests chant softly, their voices weaving a steady rhythm. The ritual is meant to honor the pharaoh's Ka, his eternal life force, ensuring his safe journey in the afterlife. A quirky little detail. Some workers secretly believed the food offerings were a way to sneak extra snacks. Imagine sneaking off with a loaf of bread meant for the gods. Tempting, but dangerous. You watch as the priests pour libations, their movements precise and deliberate. The ritual is beautiful, but also a form of control. A way to remind everyone of the divine order and their place within it. You think about how the pyramid itself is a giant prayer, a monument to power and faith. Historians still debate whether these ceremonies were primarily religious or political, designed to reinforce the pharaoh's authority. Probably both. After all, who's going to argue with a man who commands armies and commands gods? Later, as the fire dies down, you join other workers around a small fire. Someone begins to sing an old folk song about the Nile's floods and the fertile land. The music is simple, heartfelt, a contrast to the grand rituals you just witnessed. You feel a rare moment of connection with the people around you. Beneath the dust and sweat, beneath the stories and stones, you're all just human beings trying to make sense of your place in this vast, sun-baked world. As the stars blaze overhead, you lie back and look up, imagining the pharaoh's spirit, riding across the night sky, joined by countless others, and maybe, just maybe, your own spirit will find a place among the stones someday. The dawn is soft, casting pale light over the vast desert and the colossal pyramid that now nearly dominates the horizon. Today feels different. There's a quiet pride in the air, mixed with exhaustion that hangs like a thick cloak on your shoulders. You walk through the workers' village one last time before your shift ends, feeling the rough texture of sun-baked mud bricks under your fingertips and inhaling the familiar scents of baked bread and smoke from cooking fires. This place, with its dusty streets and crowded dormitories, has become a second home. The stories shared around the fire, the sweat and toil, the moments of laughter and pain, all woven into the fabric of your days. You pass by the bakery where the scent of fresh loaves beckons, the small temple where priests chant prayers, and the workshops where tools are sharpened for tomorrow's labor. As you near the pyramid's base, you pause to look up at the massive structure. Its silhouette is sharper now against the brightening sky, each stone block perfectly aligned, each casing stone gleaming faintly even in the early light. It's a monument not just to the pharaoh, but to the countless hands and hearts that shaped it. A quirky thought drifts through your mind. Imagine if future civilizations discovered this pyramid and puzzled over who you were. A humble worker whose name is lost, but whose efforts still resonate through the ages. Some archaeologists argue whether the pyramid was more a tomb, a temple, or an ancient calendar marking celestial cycles. You smile, knowing it's probably all those things and more. You touch the smooth limestone surface, feeling the coolness that contrasts with the desert heat. This stone, once a raw, rough block, is now part of a story millions of years in the making, of human ambition, faith, and the quest for immortality. As the sun climbs higher, workers start gathering their tools and preparing to leave. You share a few quiet words with friends, promising to meet again at the evening meal. There's a gentle hum of life continuing beyond these stones. You walk away slowly, carrying the dust and memories with you. The pyramid stands behind you, immense, eternal, and somehow a little more alive because of you. The desert wind picks up, whispering stories only the stones can remember. And now, you're part of those stories. Word count: 1078. The pyramid's vastness slowly fades from your mind, replaced by the soft night air around your room. The dust, the toil, the silent prayers, let them drift away gently, like the flickering flame of a distant lamp. You carried the weight of ancient stones, yet now you carry only calm. The work, the mystery, the timeless desert night. They linger, quietly like a slow breath in the dark. Rest easy now, knowing that even in silence, stories live on, softly glowing beneath the surface of dream. A bizarre little fact floats to mind. Some hieroglyphs were designed to ward off evil spirits, much like modern charms. The Eye of Horus, for example, was believed to protect against illness or misfortune. So these carvings aren't just decoration, they're ancient security systems. The stonecutters share gossip about a recent accident. A block nearly slipped off a sled, which would have crushed a group of workers. Thankfully, no one was hurt, but it's a stark reminder of how dangerous this place really is. You shiver, even though the sun is warm. Back at the scribe station, you assist in tallying food supplies: bread, onions, lentils, dried fish. Food is meticulously rationed to keep the workforce fed, but not overfed. Efficiency rules, even, in hunger. During a lull, you scribble a quick doodle of the pyramid on a spare clay shard. Just a simple outline, but with a tiny figure crawling inside one of the air shafts. Hapu catches the sketch, smiles faintly, and nods. Good, he says. Stories are important. You finish your shift helping tally and organize scrolls of papyrus, some containing royal decrees, others daily reports. The pyramid isn't just stone and sweat, it's bureaucracy, record-keeping, endless paperwork that keeps the whole machine running. When the sun dips low, you gather with other scribes and workers near a fire. Someone reads aloud a poem praising the pharaoh's eternal reign. The words are lofty and grand, but there's warmth in the voices, a shared hope that this massive stone mountain will stand for all time. You think about your clay tablet, the stones, the stars, and the thousands of unseen hands that built this place. Maybe your mark is small, maybe even invisible, but it's there, and in a way, that's enough. The morning air is heavy with dust and the faint scent of baked earth. Today, You're part of a crew assigned to move one of the massive limestone casing stones. The ones that give the pyramid its gleaming outer shell. These stones are smoother, finer, and much heavier than the rough core blocks you're used to. Their surface is so polished it almost feels slippery to the touch. The team assembles near the quarry, where the finest Tura limestone is cut. Watching the stonecutters at work is mesmerizing. They use copper saws and wooden wedges soaked in water to split the stone with remarkable precision. It's slow, noisy, and dusty work, but their technique yields blocks that fit together like puzzle pieces. You're handed a thick rope and instructed to help maneuver a newly cut stone onto a sled. It's a delicate operation. A slip could crack the block, which would be disastrous. Not just for you, but for the entire project's schedule. The sled is pulled over a track of logs greased with animal fat to reduce friction. You grunt along with the others, timing each pull with the supervisor's whistle. The sled moves inch by inch, creaking and groaning under the weight. There's a shared rhythm in the effort, almost like a song without words. The logistics of this whole operation are mind-boggling. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians used ramps, levers, or some combination to move these enormous stones into place. You have your own theory. A lot of sweat, a lot of yelling, and some serious prayer. Speaking of prayer, today the priests have brought a statue of Anubis to the site. They perform a quick ritual, chanting prayers for safety and success. Some workers roll their eyes, others seem genuinely moved. You catch a glimpse of the statue's golden eyes shining in the sun. Oddly comforting, if a bit intimidating. At one point, a stray cat wanders into the work area. It's oddly calm amid the chaos, weaving between legs and dodging dust clouds. You reach down to pet it, but it darts away with a look that clearly says, "Not now, human." After hours of hauling and shifting, the stone finally slides into position on the pyramid's face. It fits perfectly against the blocks below, the seam almost invisible. You run your hand along the smooth surface, amazed at the craftsmanship. Later, you watch as painters apply a thin layer of white plaster to the casing stones. This coating was designed to reflect sunlight, making the pyramid shine like a jewel in the desert. Some speculate that this reflective effect was meant to simulate the rays of the sun god Ra, linking the pharaoh to divine light. The plaster will eventually wear away, but for now, the pyramid gleams, a beacon visible for miles, a reminder of power, faith, and human endurance. As the sun sets, you sit with your fellow workers on a ridge overlooking the site. The pyramid towers above you, an immense silhouette against the orange sky. You feel small, tired, but oddly proud. This mountain of stone, built by countless hands, some famous, most not, is a monument to human will, and you were a part of it. The desert night is cold now, and the pyramid looms like a giant shadow in the moonlight. Tonight, you're part of the crew responsible for lighting the lamps inside the pyramid's internal corridors. It's your first time working at night, and a strange kind of quiet settles over the place. The usual clatter of tools and voices is gone, replaced by whispers and the soft flicker of oil lamps. Carrying clay lamps filled with olive oil, you creep through the narrow passageways, the ones you've only glimpsed during the daylight rush. The air is cool and still, and the faint smell of smoke curls around you. Every flicker casts shifting shadows on the limestone walls, making the hieroglyphs dance. The deeper you go, the heavier the air feels, like the stones themselves are holding their breath. You remind yourself that the pyramid was designed as a tomb and a spiritual gateway, but down here it feels like you're inside a giant heartbeat, slow and steady. One lamp sputters and nearly goes out. You hold your breath, rocking it gently, afraid to lose your light in the pitch dark. You think about the workers who built this place, crawling through these cramped tunnels, carving each stone, hauling massive slabs, all while hoping to avoid deadly accidents or worse. A quirky detail you overheard from the priests. Some believe the spirits of the dead watch over the pyramid's chambers, and that lamps should never be extinguished inside, or the soul's journey might be blocked. You try not to think about what might happen if the flame dies. Historians still argue whether these internal shafts were designed purely for ventilation, or if they served a symbolic purpose, channels for the pharaoh's spirit to ascend to the stars. Maybe both. You can't decide. It's probably best not to question too hard while you're crouched in a narrow limestone tunnel. At one point, you reach the queen's chamber. The walls here are smooth and cold, and the air feels almost electric. You place a lamp near a strange niche carved into the wall, and study the faint red ochre markings nearby. Some say these symbols hold protective magic, while others think they're just construction notes from the masons. You've heard both theories many times now, and none seem to have a definitive answer. You wake in the dark, not to a sunrise or shouting supervisor, but to a hush, something unusual. It's still deep night, the air surprisingly cool, and your breath forms little clouds as you step outside your hut. A low murmur stirs the workers' village. People gathering in small groups, whispering, pointing toward the pyramid. A rare celestial alignment is happening. That's what they're saying. The priests have been preparing for it for weeks. Orion's belt will pass directly over the pyramid's tip just before dawn. One of those once every few decades kind of things. Even the animals seem quieter, like nature knows it's showtime. You wander toward the site, passing sleepy-eyed workers wrapped in blankets, sharing warm beer and gossip. You sip some. It's terrible, but it helps. As you approach the base of the pyramid, the entire construction site feels different. No yelling, no hauling, no clang of copper tools. Just flickering oil lamps casting soft gold across the limestone. Even the overseers seem hushed. A few stand off to the side, conferring in tight circles with temple scribes and stargazers. You squint up at the sky, and there it is. Orion, called Sa by the priests, marching toward his moment. Egyptians believed Sa was a celestial representation of Osiris, god of the dead. When the stars align like this, it's not just astronomy, it's theology, architecture, and legacy, all rolled into a single blink of the sky. Historians still argue whether the pyramid's air shafts were intentionally aligned with these stars, or whether it's a convenient coincidence. But standing here, in the dark, with thousands of other breathless bodies all staring upward. It doesn't feel like an accident. A temple priest, robes stiff with starch and pride, climbs onto a platform and begins chanting in a slow, deep rhythm. It's not for you. It's for the pharaoh's soul, supposedly still hovering somewhere between the sarcophagus chamber and the sky. The king's spirit is being called home. You're not especially religious. You've had dirt under your nails for too long to be overly romantic about spirits. But even you can't help the goosebumps when the 3 stars of Orion's belt slide exactly into place, right above the pyramid's apex. For one shimmering moment, the geometry between heaven and earth clicks. It's beautiful, and maybe terrifying. The pyramid in that instant becomes a bridge, not just a tomb, a structure linking stone to stars, body to spirit, past to forever. Someone whispers that if the pharaoh's soul hasn't departed yet, it will now. You can't see it, but you picture a golden wisp spiraling upward through those ventilation shafts you once crawled into like a worm. A grand exit, not for you, but because of you. You glance around. Even the grumpiest workers are watching the sky, mouths slightly open. One guy scratches himself and mutters, "Huh. Would have been a great time to ask for a raise." After sunrise, the spell breaks. The site stirs back to life, and today you're assigned something new. Dismantling a temporary wall. These walls are built to support heavy materials during assembly, but eventually must be removed to allow final chamber access. You're handed a copper chisel, already worn smooth at the handle, and told to work carefully. This wall isn't like the others. It was plastered with red ochre, a pigment used in ritual purification, and there's a narrow strip of hieroglyphs down one side. You're warned not to touch it, not because of curses, because it's been marked as sacred documentation. As you begin chiseling away at the mortar joints, little flakes of stone tumble down, revealing older layers beneath. You pause and spot something odd. Behind the wall, tucked into a crack, is a ball of linen. You nudge it out with your tool. It's a bundle, tied tightly with twine. Inside is a small clay figurine, crudely made but clearly human. Maybe a fertility charm, a personal good luck token, or something lost by another worker long ago. You don't mention it to anyone. You just slip it into your satchel. A little piece of mystery for your pocket. Quirky find of the day. Some workers believed in block whisperers. People who could talk to the stones and sense their balance points, like a sixth sense. It's nonsense, of course. Until you meet one. His name is Senate, and he's older than the pyramid project itself. He's missing half his teeth and speaks in riddles. But everyone listens when he talks about weight and placement. Today, you're helping him pivot a stone slab into place near the queen's chamber. He puts his ear to the block, then knocks 3 times. "She wants left," he says. You shift it slightly. It fits perfectly. Goosebumps again. By midday, you're lifting with a new crew near the Grand Gallery. It's a strange, sloped corridor with a ceiling so high it feels like a temple hall. The stone corbels rise in layers above you, each one slightly offset to support the weight. Walking through it feels different, acoustically weird. Your footsteps echo like whispers, and conversations bounce in strange directions. Some scholars think it was a passage for the king's soul. Others believe it was just a cleverly designed weight dispersal system. You think it sounds like a music chamber. You hum once, just for fun. The note vibrates in your chest, long after you stop. Near the top of the gallery, a fellow worker loses grip on his rope, and a heavy basket swings down. It crashes against the wall, showering debris. No one's hurt, but your supervisor loses his mind and sends you all back for supervised stacking, which is basically time out with sandstone blocks. You spend the rest of the afternoon stacking and restacking bricks that will eventually fill unused corridor space. Nothing ceremonial, just logistics. The pyramid has a surprising number of these. Dead-end tunnels, leftover shafts, and filler zones that feel like architectural shrugs. It's oddly satisfying, though, like putting the final pieces into a giant puzzle, even if no one will ever see them. As the sun lowers, your team shares dried lentils and leftover onion near the base of the ramp. Someone picks his teeth with a splinter of limestone and says, "Bet you 10 beans they'll say we used magic." Everyone laughs. You take out the little figurine again. Hold it in your palm. So many hands have passed through this place. Carrying, chiseling, aligning, scraping, worshipping, joking, bleeding, building. And now yours. You glance up once more. Orion has vanished in the daylight, but the pyramid still points his way. Maybe that's the whole point. The sun is higher now, and the workers' village buzzes with the same routine you know too well. But today, your task is different. You're assigned to the mysterious role of scribe's assistant. Not the glamorous calligraphy or sacred writings, but the less poetic job of tallying inventory and recording labor hours on wet clay tablets. In theory, it's a break from the back-breaking hauling and chipping. In reality, it's just a change of pain. You settle at a low wooden table shaded by a linen canopy, ink and stylus at the ready. The scribe is a sharp-eyed man named Hapu, who's been here longer than you've been alive. He speaks little but watches everything with hawk-like intensity. You're to assist him in documenting stone deliveries, tool inventories, and worker assignments. The clay tablet you write on is damp and sticky, a far cry from modern paper. Hapu teaches you how to inscribe tiny wedge-shaped marks, the famous cuneiform style, though the Egyptians used hieratic script, a cursive variant for everyday work. You marvel at the precision required. One wrong stroke, and the entire meaning can change. A quirky tidbit. Some scribes believed the act of writing was a magical process. They saw their work as a bridge between the human world and the divine, words as powerful as spells. Some even coated their pens with special oils, believing it enhanced their spiritual potency. You're skeptical, but intrigued. While you carefully note the numbers, your mind drifts back to the giant blocks you helped move. It's strange, realizing that these written records will probably outlast the stones themselves. Your handwriting, clumsy as it is, might be deciphered thousands of years from now. That thought both humbles and terrifies you. Historians still argue about how much literacy was truly widespread among workers. Some believe only elite scribes could read and write, while others suggest many laborers had basic skills to keep records or communicate. Given your brief stint with Hapu's stylus, you're inclined to think literacy was at least more common than people assume. Mid-morning, You're sent to deliver a message to the stonecutters working near the pyramid's west face. You trudge across loose gravel, balancing a sealed clay jar containing fresh ink and pigments. The stonecutters greet you with nods, their fingers stained with dust and red ochre. They're engraving intricate hieroglyphs onto casing stones that will decorate the pyramid's outer layers. You watch as they carefully carve sacred symbols, ankhs, scarabs, and the all-important cartouche containing the pharaoh's throne. You grab a shovel, sigh dramatically, and begin scooping. Honestly, it's humbling. You've touched sacred chambers, carved blocks meant for the gods, and now you're ankle-deep in a stew of worker diet and poor aim. The cycle of life, right? One of the older laborers leans on his tool and chuckles. Even pharaohs poop, he says. They just have someone else carry it out. Quirky fact: crocodile dung was sometimes used in ancient contraception methods. You glance down at the muck with new horror and decide not to think about it any further. Once the pit is dealt with, and by dealt with, we mean shoved further into the ground with a prayer, you're rewarded with a short break. You sit under a shade canopy and chew some figs, your hands still stained with gods know what. A fellow worker offers a sip of date wine. You take it without asking questions. Someone brings up the strange hum they hear inside the pyramid at night. A deep, low vibration. Some say it's wind through the shafts. Others swear it's the soul of the pharaoh tuning his tomb. You joke that it's probably just indigestion from the workers' stew. But later, when you're back inside helping replace stone floor panels, you do hear it. A low, thrumming sound. Faint. Consistent. Almost. Musical. You pause mid-lift, staring into the shadows, and then it's gone. That evening, you help seal a storage cavity, one of the many hidden gaps between outer layers of stone. It's filled with unused mortar, spare rope, some broken tools. You toss in a chipped copper chisel you've been carrying for weeks. A little personal time capsule. One day, maybe, someone will find it and wonder who it belonged to. The sun sets as you leave the pyramid again. The sky turns from molten gold to dusty purple. Workers gather near fires, eating lentils and trading stories. One guy swears he saw a cat inside the pyramid. A real one, not painted on a wall. No one believes him. You sit quietly, staring at the fading silhouette of the pyramid. You helped shape that. Move it. Fill it. Seal it. Your sweat and fingerprints are in its bones. And somewhere deep inside, your breath still lingers in a shaft made for stars. Before sunrise, you're already moving, following the curve of the horizon with bleary eyes and a tight knot in your back. The day begins not with a horn or drum beat, but the rhythmic shuffling of sandals and the clatter of wooden buckets. You and a dozen others are heading to the east ramp. Today's job involves hauling gypsum mortar to patch up stress cracks along the pyramid's base layers. They don't look like much, these hairline splits between stone blocks. But they matter, especially down here, near the foundation, where the full weight of the structure bears down with relentless pressure. These joints can widen, shift, or even fail if left untended. So, while your job is literally filling cracks, it's strangely important, unseen, uncelebrated, but vital. You dip your hands into a bucket of mortar that smells like vinegar and old sandals. The mix is coarse and sticky, made of burnt gypsum, sand and water stirred by the same guy who always spits in it when no one's looking. The same recipe's been used for years, even in temples. It works, even if it tastes terrible. Not that you'd know. Probably. As you smear the gritty paste into the joints, you marvel again at the precision of these ancient blocks. Some of the seams are so tight you couldn't fit a hair between them. Modern experts still debate how the Egyptians achieved such accuracy. Copper tools, straight edges, manpower, sure. But this level of refinement? That's where the mystery creeps in. Some fringe thinkers claim aliens with laser saws. Others suggest lost machining techniques or the use of molten rock. The more grounded archaeologists argue for elbow grease, experience, and thousands of trial runs. Honestly, after scraping mortar for 5 hours straight, you're leaning toward alien lasers. Anything sounds more reasonable than doing this by hand. You take a short break and lean against a supply cart. Your hands are crusted white with dried gypsum. A nearby supervisor waves a stylus over a slab of wet clay, recording today's labor rosters. You're pretty sure he spelled your name wrong again, or just gave up and wrote, "Guy with eyebrows." Back to work. The sun's up now, and the light reflects off the limestone like a personal attack. You shield your eyes and keep filling cracks, one smear at a time. Occasionally, a higher-ranking artisan passes by, humming softly, inspecting hieroglyphic work being done on upper blocks. It's humbling, watching them chisel sacred shapes into stone. They're not just decorating. They're writing spells, names, cosmic instructions. And there you are, still patching cracks like the universe's assistant janitor. But even the humblest task plays its role. Without that mortar, those blocks might shift. Without the blocks, the passages collapse. Without the passages, the pharaoh's soul gets stuck somewhere awkward, like a divine hallway closet. So, yeah, you're important. You just don't smell like it. Later in the morning, you're redirected again, this time to help rotate a massive granite beam. This slab will eventually span part of the king's chamber's ceiling, one of 5 protective relieving layers that help distribute the crushing weight above. The trick? These beams are gigantic. Tens of tons each. Moving them requires logs, ropes, sweat, and luck. Lots of luck. You join a line of workers feeding logs beneath the stone, slowly rolling it forward. Every shove is synchronized with a chant, low and repetitive. Not for the gods. For your backs. Someone loses grip. The stone shifts sideways with a jarring crunch. Hearts stop. Everyone freezes. A supervisor runs in, checks for cracks. None, thankfully. But you can still hear your blood pounding in your ears. These moments remind you how close disaster always is. One slip, one crack. And it's not just your shift that ends. It's your breathing privileges. Once the beam is secure, you gather with the rest of the rotation team under a temporary shade. Someone pulls out a flute carved from reed and plays a lazy, off-key tune. It's oddly calming. Another worker draws shapes in the dust, fish, stars, something that looks suspiciously like a donkey wearing a crown. You mentioned the crack-filling work earlier, and one older worker nods solemnly. "The pyramid's alive," he says. "You don't fill its wounds. You bandage them." Poetic, slightly creepy, and strangely appropriate. After the rest, you're shown a newer feature being added near the base, a ceremonial drainage groove carved into the outer casing. It's meant to redirect rainwater. Rare in Egypt, sure, but not impossible. The groove is shallow, curved, and meticulously aligned. Some claim it's for ritual purity, not just water flow. Others believe it's part of an optical illusion when the pyramid was polished and gleaming. Historians still argue about how the original casing stones looked. Smooth Tura limestone, almost white, reflecting sunlight so brightly it could be seen for miles. A gleaming triangle against the sky. Today, most of that smooth outer shell is gone, looted or weathered away. But in your time, at least parts of it remain. Sometimes, when the light hits just right, it still shimmers. You end your day transporting one of those polished stones, guiding it up a lower ramp section. It's smaller than the core blocks, but smoother, delicate in a way. You wrap its corners in linen, then winch it into place with two others. It clicks in perfectly, not a millimeter off. You take a moment to touch its surface, cool, white, almost glowing in the late sun, and you wonder, will it still shine in 1,000 years? In 10,000? Probably, unless someone chips it off to build a fancy bathhouse. As the sun sinks, you sit on a ledge, looking up at the immensity of what you've helped shape. You're just one dusty soul in a crowd of thousands. But today, you sealed a crack, shifted a beam, aligned a stone, and somewhere inside that colossal triangle, the pharaoh's name echoes in golden silence. You adjust the ropes again, catching your breath. The torchlight flickers, casting huge, writhing shadows against the gallery walls. One looks suspiciously like a jackal. You blink hard, then realize it's just Beku, the guy with the long nose and unfortunate posture. Time passes and pulses. The next task is to clean the base of the shaft and clear out debris left by previous shifts. This means curling yourself into narrow passageways barely wide enough for your shoulders, wielding a dull chisel and a dustpan basket. You wedge yourself into one such space and immediately regret every decision that led you. Here, it's quiet in here, too quiet. You chip slowly at hardened sediment. Dust falls into your lap. Something skitters behind your foot. You don't check what it was. Instead, you focus on the walls, now close enough to touch on both sides with your elbows. Some are scratched with faint red ink, notations made by the builders. A kind of pyramid, post-it note. Things like level 12, block set 8, and align with star shaft, written in ancient shorthand. You wonder if these marks were meant for the gods, or just practical reminders. Historians still argue whether the pyramid's internal passages served symbolic purposes, like guiding the pharaoh's soul to the stars, or purely practical ones for construction. Honestly, it might be both. Egyptians were masters of function and meaning coexisting. A scraping noise draws your attention. Above you, someone is opening a block trap, a granite plug that seals off a shaft once it's no longer needed. These plugs weigh tons and are fitted so precisely that moving them involves weeks of planning. You help lay the ramp planks to guide it downward, praying no one miscalculates the angle. These things do not stop once they start. The moment it begins to slide, everyone backs away. It moves slowly at first, then picks up speed, rumbling like thunder inside the stone throat of the pyramid. When it finally thuds into place, the vibrations travel up your legs like a warning. A very heavy, very final sounding warning. You're grateful when someone calls for a meal break. Inside the pyramid, that means squatting on a slab of limestone, unwrapping your lunch, usually more bread, more fish, maybe a bit of onion if you're lucky, and pretending the grit in your food is seasoning and not just pyramid dust. A nearby worker boasts that his cousin saw the king's chamber and claims it's lined with red granite so smooth you can see your face in it. You don't believe him, but it's a nice thought. Someone else mentions a hidden chamber, recently found above the king's chamber. The void discovered through modern scanning. No one knows what it's for. Storage, a structural buffer, a secret tomb within a tomb. Theories abound, but answers are scarce. You joke that maybe it's just where the foremen sneak off to nap. The others laugh, but only a little. Because, frankly, that would make a lot of sense. After the meal, you're reassigned to a sealing crew. It's time to start walling off one of the internal shafts. This part is bittersweet. You're literally entombing a space you've worked in for days. You'll never see it again. No one will. Once the granite blocks are in place, the shaft disappears forever. You help push one into position, feeling the scrape of stone against stone and the deep finality of the moment. It's like sealing away a secret. And in a way you are. Your last task before leaving the pyramid for the day is to clean the torch niches. One by one, you replace the flickering oil torches with fresh ones, lighting the path for the next crew. It's oddly comforting, this passing of flame from hand to hand. Outside again, the sun has moved far across the sky. You squint as you exit the narrow passage like stepping out of a dream. Your limbs ache, your clothes are stiff with sweat, but your heart feels full. Inside that pyramid you've touched something few ever will. Something sacred, secret, and vast. And tonight, you'll sleep knowing your fingerprints, dusty, sweaty, unnoticed, are pressed into the heart of the greatest tomb ever built. The next morning the sun rises like it's got something to prove. Even before it crests the horizon, it's already heating up the dust, baking the rooftops of worker villages, and turning your linen tunic into a wearable oven. Your muscles whimper in protest, but you swing your legs off the mat anyway, grit your teeth, and shuffle into your sandals. One more day. One more shift. Today, you're assigned to what sounds like a break, but very much isn't, helping with the shaft ventilation systems, which sounds harmless until you realize it involves crawling into narrow, angled stone tunnels that slope upward for meters at a time, some so tight you have to exhale just to squeeze through. You trudge across the construction site, passing workers balancing baskets of copper tools, teams mixing gypsum mortar with their bare hands, and others just sitting in the shade, pretending not to exist. You envy them. At the pyramid's base, you report to a supervisor who gives you a crooked smile and a torch. "You like small spaces?" he asks, which is definitely rhetorical. Inside again, the light shifts from blinding sun to dim torch glow. You pass familiar corners now. Graffiti, tool marks, bits of rope, even a sandal someone lost last week. It's oddly comforting. Like the pyramid's internal organs are becoming your second home. You reach the lower ventilation shaft. Barely. A meter wide. It's angled upward at about 30 degrees. Designed to connect the king's chamber to the outside. Historians still argue whether these were purely functional or had ceremonial purposes. Star alignment, perhaps. After all, Some of them point directly at Sirius or Orion's belt. Coincidence? Probably not. Egyptians weren't really the "oops, we eyeballed it" type. You duck into the shaft, and immediately the stone closes around you like a mouth. You're crawling now, belly to floor, torch held out in front like a worm on a hook. The air is cooler, but stale. Your breath echoes. You try not to think about getting stuck. Halfway in, you find ancient soot marks from torches long gone. Black smudges on otherwise pristine limestone. Evidence of earlier workers, or maybe priests, or maybe just a bored guy with a flame and some time. You're not alone in here, not really. This place has been breathing humans in and out for decades. You reach the blockage, a rock jammed where the shaft narrows. Your job is to clear it, widen the space just enough to allow airflow or perhaps soul flow depending on who you ask. You chip away with a copper pick, each strike echoing oddly, like the pyramid is complaining about being poked. The dust is unbearable. It fills your nose, your eyes, your throat. You tie a cloth over your mouth and keep working, rhythmically, slowly. There's a meditative quality to it. Chip, flick, breathe, and then chip again. You pause and lean back, trying not to bump your head, and notice something curious. A patch of red pigment smeared on the wall above. Not graffiti, not a builder's note, just a smear. Maybe from a handprint, maybe someone bleeding, or maybe, just maybe, it's the kind of mystery archaeologists will argue about in 4,000 years. After clearing the blockage, you reverse scoot out of the shaft like an awkward crab, grateful to see your team leader's annoyed face. At the end of the tunnel, he nods once. Still breathing? Good. You're reassigned again. This time to a rarely discussed but deeply unpleasant task. The waste pit. Yes, even pyramids have bathrooms. Or, more accurately, a spot where people go. It's not elegant. It's a stone trench near the rear base of the structure, partially hidden behind supply huts and wrapped. The entrance to the pyramid isn't at the base like you'd expect. It's higher up, awkwardly placed for reasons only priests and pharaohs understand. You reach it by scrambling up a short ramp and ducking into a small, shadowed passage, and, just like that, you're inside. Instant difference. The temperature drops dramatically. Your sweat cools instantly, and for a moment you feel almost alive again. Almost. The tunnel is narrow, claustrophobically so. You have to stoop slightly, walking in that half-hunched, knees-bent shuffle that will haunt your spine for days. The walls are smooth limestone, damp in places, and covered in charcoal guidelines and chisel marks. No fancy carvings yet. This is a workspace, not a royal art gallery. Your job today is assisting with the grand gallery. Sounds impressive, right? And it is. It's a steep, ascending corridor nearly 9 meters high, lined with massive corbelled stones that make it look like a stone cathedral built inside a cave. You're not in the main chamber yet, but you're close. This space is part hallway, part miracle of engineering. You try not to think about how many tons of stone are directly above your head. Some of the more senior workers are busy hauling granite slabs upward toward the king's chamber. These slabs are from Aswan, over 500 miles south. They're almost sacred, heavy, dark, impossibly hard. And you, lucky you, get to help grease the sled tracks and fetch the wedges. Here's the fun part. In order to haul granite upward inside the pyramid, the workers use a pulley system with ropes wound through, holes carved into massive beams, counterweights, levers, and a shocking number of yelling men help guide each stone into place. You wedge yourself against the side of the wall to stay clear as one such block groans its way up the slope, pulled by a dozen straining bodies. There's a moment where the ropes slip slightly. The entire gallery goes dead silent. You swear the granite shifts. A heartbeat later, the ropes catch again, and everyone breathes out at once. Someone whispers, "Still safer than working with crocodiles," which may or may not be true. As the slab disappears up the passage, your crew returns to smoothing and reinforcing the ramp floor. You help lay wooden beams, hammering them in with mallets wrapped in leather. The wood is local acacia, tough, springy, and known to give the occasional splinter that might as well be a spear. You've pulled a few out of your palms over the past week, and you've developed a sixth sense for which planks bite. While you work, one of the older workers tells a story. Says a crew once sealed themselves inside the pyramid by accident, trapping a whole team near a false chamber. They survived on beer and dried lentils until someone noticed the missing tools and went looking. Historians still argue whether that tale is real or just a cautionary tale told to keep rookies from wandering off. Either way, you make a mental note. Always know where the exit is. Hours pass. You barely notice. The dim light, the cool stone, the repetitive motion. It all blurs into one long, slow dream. You lose track of time entirely until a torch sputters near the entrance, reminding everyone that it's probably time to resurface. Climbing out of the pyramid is harder than going in. Every muscle protests. Your legs shake from crouching and balancing. You emerge into the sunlight squinting like a mole, blinking at the harsh brightness and baking heat. The outside world feels wrong, almost. Like you've been living underground for weeks instead of hours. You take a moment to sit in the shade of a nearby supply tent. Someone hands you a strip of dried fish, salty and chewy enough to sand your teeth smooth. You chew slowly, savoring the rare moment of stillness. Above, you hear a falcon cry, a sharp, lonely sound. Someone mutters, "Horus is watching," and tosses a breadcrumb into the wind. The pyramid looms behind you, its shadow now covering part of the base camp. It's strange to think about everything hidden inside it. Chambers, shafts, secret corridors. Some say there are still rooms we haven't found. Others believe the pyramid channels divine energy, or aligns with the stars for reasons we'll never fully grasp. You believe it contains heat, dust, and way too many staircases. Back at the entrance, the overseer calls your name again. Another shift inside. You sigh and adjust your head wrap. Before re-entering, you pass a wall where someone has scratched graffiti into the stone. A stick figure hauling a block with the words, "Henu the Strongest," underneath. Probably someone trying to immortalize their nickname before a foreman caught them. You add a quick mark of your own. Nothing big, just a tiny symbol tucked into a corner. Your own private rebellion. After all, if you're going to sweat your soul into a stone hallway, might as well leave your whisper behind. Inside you go again. Back into the heart of the pyramid. You've barely stepped back into the grand gallery when the quiet wraps around you again. Thick, almost physical. Your ears adjust from the outside chaos to the muffled, echoing stillness. Every scuff of your sandals, every breath and clink of tools seems amplified tenfold. The walls don't just reflect sound, they hold it, like the pyramid itself is listening. Today's assignment, helping to shape and maneuver a counterweight block. If that sounds like a job that should go to someone with 4 donkeys for arms, you'd be right, but unfortunately, everyone else is already occupied, and you drew the short reed. The block is part of a system designed to help guide granite slabs safely into the king's chamber. The Egyptians didn't just stack rocks, willy-nilly. No, they thought in systems, in mechanisms. This counterweight block is one of several, part of an intricate ballet of physics and prayer. You're helping attach it to a pulley frame with thick, fibrous ropes, the kind made from palm husks, and wear your fingers raw repetition. As you grip one of the ropes and start to pull, your hands remember yesterday's blisters with startling clarity. You wrap them in linen scraps, already stiff with dried sweat, and heave again. Beside you, another worker mutters a charm under his breath. Just a little insurance, he says, in case the pyramid decides it wants a snack. There's a moment of camaraderie in here that you don't feel on the ramps. Maybe it's the tight space. Maybe it's the lack of supervisors barking orders every 5 minutes. But in this strange stone throat of the pyramid, you're all part of something different, less visible, more permanent. The rope groans, the block shifts. Slowly, it begins its controlled descent down a carved shaft designed centuries ago by someone who probably wore fancier sandals than you'll ever see. The engineering behind this place is staggering. Even today, historians aren't totally sure how the Egyptians managed to calculate all these angles and stress points without modern math. Some say it was sheer trial and error. Others believe they had lost mathematical techniques we no longer understand. And then, of course, there are those who think a time traveler whispered it, eventually with much groaning and a heroic shove from a man named Hori, who might actually be part ox. The block slides through the corner. Applause breaks out, mostly sarcastic, but you'll take it. You're covered in dust, your knees are bruised, and you've developed a cramp in a muscle you didn't even know existed. A break is called. Blessed relief. You drop to a flat stone slab and flop down like a fish out of Nile. You stretch your arms, flex your toes, and breathe in the scent of wet stone, sweat, and faint incense from the priest blessing a cornerstone nearby. He's murmuring something about balance and eternity while holding a small jar of oil and a feather. You watch, dazed. The ritual is oddly peaceful. You reach into your satchel and pull out a fig, slightly squished, but still edible. You chew slowly, letting the sugary pulp cut through the dryness in your throat. Overhead, a flock of birds wheels in the sky, tiny dots against the glaring blue. Someone beside you wonders aloud what the pyramid will look like when it's finished. You imagine it gleaming with white casing stones, a beacon visible for miles. You also imagine being very far away from it, ideally in a shady grove with a lot more figs. You close your eyes for a moment, just long enough to let the breeze pass over your skin and to pretend for a second that you're not about to go back to lifting your body weight in stone. But then the whistle blows. Breaks over. up you go. Again. By now your hands have started to take on that special texture, somewhere between rope-burnt papyrus and the surface of a sun-dried fish. You flex your fingers as you climb the next segment of ramp, this one steeper than the last, and try not to think too hard about how many steps there are to go, or how slippery the stone dust makes everything, or how, yes, that's absolutely someone's sandal down there, abandoned mid-step like its owner just evaporated. The midday sun hits full force as you reach the higher tiers of the pyramid. The air shimmers. Everything feels quieter up here, though the activity hasn't slowed. It's just the heat. It dulls the sound, softens the shouting, and turns every breath into a labored sip from an invisible oven. You tighten your head wrap and squint against the glare reflecting off the pale stone. Your new assignment? Block fitting duty, which is about as thrilling as it sounds. You're not placing the blocks, that's for the more experienced masons. But you are part of the smoothing and adjusting crew, responsible for helping each stone settle into place. Kind of like playing Tetris, but every block weighs a ton, and your joystick is a team of increasingly grumpy men with wooden mallets. You take your position at the edge of a newly laid row, where a block has just arrived by sled and pulley system. It lands with a bone-jarring thud, dust puffing into your face. You cough, wave it away, and start wedging small stones and sand into the gaps to stabilize it. Here's something surprisingly elegant. The ancient Egyptians didn't use mortar, like we do today. They relied on incredible precision and friction. Just good old-fashioned perfect geometry and years of trial and error. Some of these seams are so tight, you couldn't slide a single hair between them. Literally. One archaeologist tried, but not every block fits like a dream. That's where you come in. Chipping, sanding, and gently adjusting until the whole thing lies flush. It's finicky, frustrating work, especially when you've already had 3 separate flies land directly on your eyeball. As you hammer, you overhear the senior mason lecturing an apprentice. "The gods dwell in perfection," he says, gesturing to the line of blocks. "So your chisels must sing the gods' song." You're not sure what kind of song involves this much sweating and swearing, but you keep chiseling. To your left, a few workers are using a copper drill with sand as an abrasive to shape the edges. It's slow going, but somehow it works. You tried it once. The result was abstract. You decided then that you were not destined to be an artist. Suddenly, a shout from above. Everyone freezes. It's the signal for a falling object. Someone's tool, a bronze chisel, has slipped and is bouncing its way down the side of the pyramid like a particularly dangerous game of plinko. Everyone ducks instinctively. The tool clatters past, then vanishes over the edge, probably heading straight for someone's lunch. You exhale slowly and get back to work. Just another day in paradise. You finally finish adjusting the block and step back. It looks, well, flat. That's all anyone's really asking for at this point. You glance up the slope, where the ramps are thinner and the workers fewer. Those at the very top are working on the final tiers. You wonder what that must be like, to be up so high, where the air's a little cooler and the pharaoh's tomb is nearly ready. But you also wonder how they're going to get down. Fun historical aside, some scholars believe the pyramid's upper Stones were placed using internal ramps, clever passageways built inside the pyramid walls. The evidence? Subtle spiral voids found in scans of the Great Pyramid. But others say that's nonsense and it was just really, really long ramps. And then there are the fringe thinkers who say aliens helped. You know, the usual. Back in your corner of reality, someone nudges you with a water gourd. You take a swig, grateful. The water is warm and tastes faintly like the goat skin it's stored in. But it's still water. As you wipe your mouth, a small breeze picks up. You don't dare believe it's real at first. But then it blows again, lifting the edge of your headcloth, and giving you a rare moment of goosebumps. You and the others glance around like kids witnessing a miracle. Cool wind, someone murmurs. Must be from the gods. Nah, someone else says. It's probably just because someone opened the storage tent too fast. You all laugh, just enough to remember you're still human. Down below, carts creak and sleds groan as another batch of stone arrives. You wonder where it came from. Probably Tura, where the whitest limestone is quarried. Transported via barge, hauled across makeshift roads, and then dragged up these ramps. An insane amount of effort for each block, and there are thousands. A passing worker mentions that a new shipment of red granite just arrived. Granite, as in the stuff from Aswan, hundreds of miles upriver. Harder than anything else on site. Used for the inner chambers and sarcophagi. You make a note to avoid that team if you want to keep your spine intact. As the day rolls on, the air becomes almost liquid. Sweat trickles down your back, soaking your kilt. Your muscles throb in places you forgot existed. But somehow, you keep moving. 1 block becomes 2. 2 becomes 10. The pyramid grows taller. At one point, you hear a strange sound. Music. Somewhere. Below, a group of workers is singing a rowing chant, adapting it for hauling stone. The rhythm helps. You hum along, and for a moment, things feel easier. Then, of course, someone trips over a bucket and nearly takes you with them. Typical. By late afternoon, the light shifts. Shadows grow longer. The stones turn a richer shade of gold. The foreman calls for cleanup and rope coiling. Your hands are trembling, your legs are jelly, and your entire body feels like it's humming. Part exhaustion, part muscle memory. You make your way back down the ramps slowly, carefully. No one's in a hurry. Even the overseers seem to recognize that at this hour, rebellion would be easy. Everyone's too tired to fake enthusiasm. At the base of the pyramid, you drop your tools into a woven basket. Someone will collect them and sort them by type. Maybe. Or maybe they'll just vanish until someone yells about a missing hammer again. On your way out, you pass a small shrine tucked between 2 storage sheds. A flickering oil lamp burns there, along with a handful of offerings, dates, coins, a bit of beer. You pause, drop in a broken amulet you've been carrying, and whisper a thanks. For surviving the day, for not falling off a ramp, for still having all 10 toes. You start the walk back to the village, the horizon painted in deep pinks and oranges. It's beautiful, in that I can barely see straight, but wow, the sky is doing something magical kind of way. And in the silence that follows the day's chaos, you realize something unexpected. You're kind of proud. You're helping build something that will outlast empires. Even if your name is never remembered, even if no one ever carves your face into stone or writes about you in a scroll, the stone you just leveled, the sweat you left in the cracks, will still be here. For a very, very long time. You wake up the next morning with a grunt, every joint in your body filing a complaint. Your back, angry, your shoulders, betrayed, your feet, completely unaware of why you keep doing this to them. You sit up on the reed mat inside your modest little mud brick sleeping hut, stretch your arms toward a ceiling you can't touch, and immediately regret it. A gecko watches silently from the wall, probably judging your life choices. Breakfast is waiting, if you can call it that. A small loaf of coarse barley bread, tough as a sun-baked sandal, and a cup of beer that tastes more like sour porridge than anything you'd serve at a party. Still, it does the job. Gives you just enough energy to stand without crying. Today, you're rotating to internal work, going inside the pyramid. You gulp the last of your beer, which may have contained a bug or two. Splash a handful of water on your face, and head out into the morning haze. The sunrise bathes everything in molten gold, which would be beautiful if it didn't mean blistering heat incoming. You pass neighbors along the way, workers, stone draggers, tool carriers, each one giving the same nod, the tired sob. The walk to the work site takes about 20 minutes, assuming no delays. You pass rows of mud brick homes, many still dark, and then the granary, which smells faintly of spoiled wheat. 2 donkeys stand tied to a post, chewing in synchronized boredom. A scribe nearby is counting baskets of grain, muttering to himself and tapping numbers into a wax tablet. He doesn't even look up as you pass. Soon, the houses thin out, and the land opens into the hard-packed trail that leads directly to the base of the pyramid. It's still early, and the sun's just peeking over the horizon, but already the path is crowded. Lines of workers march ahead of you, stone haulers, plaster mixers, ramp repairmen, woodcutters dragging bundles of logs. Some chat, some mumble prayers, some just trudge forward in sleepy silence. You blend right in. The dirt under your feet is worn smooth from thousands of footfalls. You've taken this path enough times to know each bend and loose stone. There's one spot where a tamarisk bush grows oddly sideways, and a goat sometimes perches on it like it owns the place. Today the goat is absent, probably stealing breakfast somewhere. As the pyramid gets closer, the scale becomes overwhelming. It towers over everything, the sunlight hitting its unfinished blocks in golden streaks. You can hear the distant clang of metal on stone, the rumble of sledges dragging loads, and the occasional shouted command. Your stomach twists a little, not from fear, but from that very specific dread of knowing exactly how much your body is about to hate you. You spot the daily inspection tent near the base. 2 supervisors stand there, one sunburned and bored, the other squinting suspiciously at everyone's hands and feet, checking for fakers. You, limping? No limp today, you work. He doesn't believe in days off. You smile politely and try not to limp too obviously. And now, you arrive at the foot of the beast. The base of the pyramid is a chaos of ramps, ropes, pulleys, and crates of tools. The entire area smells of sun-baked limestone and old sweat. It's like a living machine, full of creaks and grunts and that rhythmic, endless scrape of chisel on stone. You're assigned to a mid-tier lifting crew today. That means you won't be working at the base or up near the capstone, thank the gods, but right in the middle, hauling tools and smoothing newly laid blocks. Not glamorous, not easy, but survivable, probably. A man walks by carrying a jug marked with the red symbol for water. You eye it greedily. Hydration is a rare luxury. 2 sips, no more, he says, handing it around. The water is warm and tastes faintly of clay, but you take it like it's the Nile's nectar. Oh, and here's a fun one. You pass a crew that seems to be doing nothing. Just staring at a wall and poking at it with sticks. Turns out they're part of an experimental alignment team, trying to ensure the pyramid's angles match the stars, or the cardinal points, or maybe just whatever the foreman points at while squinting. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians used star charts, solar shadows, or pure instinct for alignment. You're just glad you don't have to do math in this heat. You reach your assigned block. It's the size of a small hippo and weighs about as much. Someone hands you a chisel and a hammer. Time to carve the guiding grooves for the next layer. You sigh, crack your neck, and whisper a little prayer to any god listening. Please, don't let me lose a toe today. Your arms already ache, and the sun's barely climbed above the horizon. You trudge uphill alongside a caravan of other workers, each of you clutching your tools and mumbling quiet complaints about your backs, your supervisors, and the fact that none of you have seen a single cat in 3 days, which is either a terrible omen or just a weird coincidence. Ancient Egypt is like that. Everything might be symbolic, or it might just be a missing cat. The path is long and winding, a dusty ribbon etched into the earth by countless tired feet. It's barely wide enough for the two-way traffic of humans, and the occasional stubborn donkey. You dodge a pile of fresh dung and nearly bump into a man pushing a sled loaded with jars. He glares at you like you were the one hauling ancient cargo through a rock field, and not the other way around. As you reach the main staging area at the pyramid's base, the structure looms overhead like a stone leviathan. It seems bigger every day, even though you know that's impossible. But when you're climbing its side in the heat with the weight of the sun pressing down on your skull, reality tends to bend. You're on ramp duty today. Not the glamorous placing capstones under a royal canopy kind of job. Nope, you're hauling, dragging, and sometimes slipping your way up and down the ramps that coil around the pyramid like an enormous corkscrew. Some ramps are straight and steep. Others are gentle spirals barely clinging to the outer edge. No one agrees which design is better. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians used external ramps, internal spirals, or some magical levitation system we just haven't figured out yet. Personally, you vote for magic, or at least anti-gravity sandals. The ramp you're assigned to is one of the newer ones, made of packed clay and wooden planks. It creaks ominously with every heavy step. Teams are stationed along its length, handing off ropes and levers, coordinating hauls like a slow-moving human conveyor belt. There's a rhythm to it, a sort of grunting symphony, punctuated by barked orders and the occasional shouted curse when someone stubs a toe on a loose rock. Your first task? Help pull a block. Not a huge one. Just a modest limestone slab the size of a large sofa. It's perched on a wooden sled slicked with water and something suspiciously dark and greasy. possibly oil, possibly fish guts, possibly both. No one asks questions about the lubricant. You join the pulling team, a dozen men gripping thick rope that looks like it's seen too many summers. You plant your feet on the packed clay, lean back, and heave. The sled jerks forward an inch. Everyone groans. You heave again. 2 more inches. Progress. After what feels like a month but is probably just 15 minutes, the block finally reaches its designated level. There's a small celebration. Someone yells "Praise Ra," and another guy pats you on the back with a hand so sweaty it leaves a mark. You don't mind. Victory is sticky, apparently. Off to the side, you spot a group of elite artisans chipping away at the fine-facing stones. They wear cleaner linen, speak softer, and sometimes get actual shade. One of them is carving a cartouche, a pharaoh's name in a looped oval. He catches you staring and raises an eyebrow. You look away. You don't belong in the fancy circle. Your job is to move things, not beautify them. Nearby, a supervisor is arguing with 2 engineers over the angle of the ramp. One's using a measuring stick and a plumb bob. The other's drawing lines in the dirt with a stick and gesturing wildly at the sun. You're not sure if they're solving a problem or just really passionate about triangles. Either way, it delays your next haul, and you take the moment to lean on your chisel and wipe sweat from your brow. Fun fact: ancient Egyptian construction sites were full of overseers and project managers, not unlike modern-day offices. Some were brutal. Others were just really obsessed with logs and ledgers. Records from pyramid towns show detailed food lists, worker absences, and even who took a sick day because of a scorpion sting. Makes you wonder if they also had someone who always forgot their tools and blamed it on misplacing them during prayers. As the sun climbs higher, the air turns syrupy with heat. You drape a damp cloth over your neck and take a few sips from a water jug passed between workers. It's clay cool and slightly dusty, but it keeps the world from spinning. Then comes your least favorite task: navigating the corner. At a particular junction on the spiral ramp, the path narrows into an awkward bend. The sleds always snag here, and it's your team's job to guide them with ropes and wooden levers. It's a job that combines balance, coordination, and a complete disregard for the value of your own ankles. Sure enough, the block catches. The rope jerks. You stumble. Someone yells something about the gods being angry. You mutter something decidedly less divine and adjust your grip. Between bites, your eyes drift toward the edge of the village. The pyramid's outline is already visible in the lightening sky, a hulking silhouette with wooden scaffolding hugging its side like a spiderweb. It feels distant and massive and weirdly quiet, even though it's your job site, even though it's where you'll spend the next 10 hours. Fun historical fact to chew on with your lentils: the village you're in isn't a random cluster of huts. It's part of an organized complex built just for pyramid workers, complete with bakeries, fish drying racks, and surprisingly detailed record-keeping. Archaeologists found piles of ancient payroll stubs. Basically, the pharaoh was big on spreadsheets, apparently. But it's not all cold efficiency. There are murals here and there, painted with ochre and charcoal. Scenes of Nile birds, sunboats, and jackal-headed gods. Some of them are weirdly specific, like the one near your hut that seems to show a man yelling at a goose. No one knows who painted it or why. Historians still argue whether these decorations were personal expressions, official propaganda, or just ancient graffiti. You finish eating just as the camp overseer walks by, his voice like a cracked whip. "Move! Work weights!" he barks, which is basically his version of good morning. You and the others rise, stretching and adjusting head wraps. You sling your tool satchel over one shoulder. It's light now, but by midday, everything will feel like lead. The walk to the work site takes about 20 minutes, assuming no delays. You pass rows of mud brick homes, many still dark, and then the granary, which smells faintly of spoiled wheat. 2 donkeys stand tied to a post, chewing in synchronized boredom. A scribe nearby is counting baskets of grain, muttering to himself and tapping numbers into a wax tablet. He doesn't even look up as you pass. Soon, the houses thin out, and the land opens into the hard-packed trail that leads directly to the base of the pyramid. It's still early, and the sun's just peeking over the horizon, but already the path is crowded. Lines of workers march ahead of you. Stone haulers, plaster mixers, ramp repairmen, woodcutters dragging bundles of logs. Some chat, some mumble prayers, some just trudge forward in sleepy silence. You blend right in. The dirt under your feet is worn smooth from thousands of footfalls. You've taken this path enough times to know each bend and loose stone. There's one spot where a tamarisk bush grows oddly sideways, and a goat sometimes perches on it like it owns the place. Today, the goat is absent, probably stealing breakfast somewhere. As the pyramid gets closer, the scale becomes overwhelming. It towers over everything, the sunlight hitting its unfinished blocks in golden streaks. You can hear the distant clang of metal on stone, the rumble of sledges dragging loads, and the occasional shouted command. Your stomach twists a little, not from fear, but from that very specific dread of knowing exactly how much your body is about to hate you. You spot the daily inspection tent near the base. 2 supervisors stand there, one sunburned and bored, the other squinting suspiciously at everyone's hands and feet, checking for fakers. "You, limping? No limp today? You work." He doesn't believe in days off. You smile politely and try not to limp too obviously. And now, you arrive at the foot of the beast. The base of the pyramid is a chaos of ramps, ropes, pulleys, and crates of tools. The entire area smells of sun-baked limestone and old sweat. It's like a living machine, full of creaks and grunts and that rhythmic, endless scrape of chisel on stone. You're assigned to a mid-tier lifting crew today. That means you won't be working at the base or up near the capstone, thank the gods. But right in the middle, hauling tools and smoothing newly laid blocks. Not glamorous, not easy, but survivable. Probably. A man walks by carrying a jug marked with a red symbol for water. You eye it greedily. Hydration is a rare luxury. 2 sips, no more, he says, handing it around. The water is warm and tastes faintly of clay, but you take it like it's the Nile's nectar. Oh, and here's a fun one. You pass a crew that seems to be doing nothing? Just staring at a wall and poking at it with sticks. Turns out they're part of an experimental alignment team, trying to ensure the pyramid's angles match the stars, or the cardinal points, or maybe just whatever the foreman points at while squinting. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians used star charts, solar shadows, or pure instinct for alignment. You're just glad you don't have to do math in this heat. You reach your assigned block. It's the size of a small hippo and weighs about as much. Someone hands you a chisel and a hammer. Time to carve the guiding grooves for the next layer. You sigh, crack your neck, and whisper a little prayer to any god listening. Please don't let me lose a toe today. Your arms already ache, and the sun's barely climbed above the horizon. You trudge uphill alongside a caravan of other workers, each of you clutching your tools and mumbling quiet complaints about your backs, your supervisors, and the fact that none of you have seen a single cat in 3 days, which is either a terrible omen or just a weird coincidence. Ancient Egypt is like that. Everything might be symbolic, or it might just be a missing cat. The path is long and winding, a dusty ribbon etched into the earth by countless tired feet. It's barely wide enough for the two-way traffic of humans, and the occasional stubborn donkey. You dodge a pile of fresh dung and nearly bump into a man pushing a sled loaded with jars. He glares at you like you were the one hauling ancient cargo through a rock field, and not the other way around. As you reach the main staging area at the pyramid's base, the structure looms overhead like a stone leviathan. It seems bigger every day, even though you know that's impossible. But when you're climbing its side in the heat with the weight of the sun pressing down on your skull, reality tends to bend. You're on ramp duty today. Not the glamorous placing capstones under a royal canopy kind of job. Nope. You're hauling, dragging, and sometimes slipping your way up and down the ramps that coil around the pyramid like an enormous corkscrew. Some ramps are straight and steep, others are gentle spirals barely clinging to the outer edge. No one agrees which design is better. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians used external ramps, internal spirals, or some magical levitation system we just haven't figured out yet. Personally, you vote for magic. Or at least anti-gravity sandals. The ramp you're assigned to is one of the newer ones, made of packed clay and wooden planks. It creaks ominously with every heavy step. Teams are stationed along its length, handing off ropes and levers, coordinating hauls like a slow-moving human conveyor belt. There's a rhythm to it, a sort of grunting symphony, punctuated by barked orders and the occasional shouted curse when someone stubs a toe on a loose rock. Your first task? Help pull a block. Not a huge one, just a modest limestone slab the size of a large sofa. It's perched on a wooden sled slicked with water and something suspiciously dark and greasy. Possibly oil, possibly fish guts, possibly both. No one asks questions about the lubricant. You join the pulling team, a dozen men gripping thick rope that looks like it's seen too many summers. You plant your feet on the packed clay, lean back, and heave. The sled jerks forward an inch. Everyone groans. You heave again. 2 more inches. Progress. After what feels like a month but is probably just 15 minutes, the block finally reaches its designated level. There's a small celebration. Someone yells, "Praise Ra," and another guy pats you on the back with a hand so sweaty it leaves a mark. You don't mind. Victory is sticky, apparently. Off to the side, you spot a group of elite artisans chipping away at the fine-facing stones. They wear cleaner linen, speak softer, and sometimes get actual shade. One of them is carving a cartouche, a pharaoh's name in a looped oval. He catches you staring and raises an eyebrow. You look away. You don't belong in the fancy circle. Your job is to move things, not beautify them. Nearby, a supervisor is arguing with two engineers over the angle of the ramp. One's using a measuring stick and a plumb bob. The other's drawing lines in the dirt with a stick and gesturing wildly at the sun. You're not sure if they're solving a problem or just really passionate about triangles. Either way, it delays your next haul, and you take the moment to lean on your chisel and wipe sweat from your brow. Fun fact: ancient Egyptian construction sites were full of overseers and project managers, not unlike modern-day offices. Some were brutal. Others were just really obsessed with logs and ledgers. Records from pyramid towns show detailed food lists, worker absences, and even who took a sick day because of a scorpion sting. Makes you wonder if they also had someone who always forgot their tools and blamed it on misplacing them during prayers. Hey guys. Tonight we slip into sandals, squint against the desert sun, and shuffle through a haze of dust and sweat as we head deep into the heart of something massive and mysterious. A pyramid. Not as a god king, or a priest, or even a tomb. Robber. Nope. You're a worker. An ordinary, probably underfed, possibly temporarily hired, and entirely expendable worker. Your job? Move heavy things until something gives. Hopefully not your spine. You're not here to solve riddles or uncover treasure. You're here to carry, haul, scrape, and sweat. And while it might sound like the world's worst summer internship, this daily grind is the invisible engine behind Egypt's most iconic wonders. The pyramid may be immortal, but your back? Yeah, it's got about 3 good years left. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And I'd love to know. Drop a comment with your location and the time where you're watching from. Let's see how many of us are drifting off together around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't remember signing up for this. Technically, you did. It was that festival. The one with too much date beer and a recruiter who promised warm food and a stable job. You should have asked what stable meant. Turns out it's lugging limestone under a sun that burns like it holds a personal grudge. And now, here you are. Barefoot, slightly hungover, standing in a long, uneven line outside the work camp foreman's tent, while he squints at a clay tablet and grunts your name. The smell hits first. A combination of sweaty men, donkey droppings, and the oddly sweet tang of rotting onions. You're in the barracks zone, a temporary village of mud brick homes and straw roofs built just outside the construction site. It's loud. Babies cry, dogs bark, someone is yelling about a lost tool. The sun isn't even up yet. A scribe nearby jots down notes with a reed pen, dipping it lazily in black ink as he watches you all file in. You're officially on the roster now. Congratulations. You've entered history, sort of. You'll probably never be named or remembered, but hey, the stone you helped move might be. You shuffle into the mess area where breakfast awaits. Lentils, flatbread, and a splash of beer. Egyptian beer, which is warm, thick, and sort of chewy. You try not to think about it too hard. It's fuel, not fun. The older guys mutter around you. One of them points toward the horizon where the pyramid rises, still incomplete. A hulking mass of sun-bleached stone blocks stacked in tiers. From here, It looks like a mountain that someone forgot to finish. You're headed there soon enough. And no, there's no shade. You overhear one guy talking about a new team of Nubian haulers who arrived yesterday. Another swears he saw a priest blessing the worksite at dawn. To keep the spirits of the dead away, he mutters, not entirely, joking. Fun fact: Egyptians were deeply spiritual about their labor, even the sweaty, blistering parts. Each stone moved was sacred, each wall aligned to cosmic perfection. Historians still argue whether the labor was strictly coerced or a weird form of national religious pride. Probably both. You just want a shorter line at breakfast. You tighten the old linen band wrapped around your waist and check your tools. Worn sandals, a cloth shoulder wrap, and that copper chisel that keeps bending every 3 hits. The handle's wrapped in strips of palm to keep it from digging into your hand, but it's still a nuisance. You're supposed to carve clean, precise edges on limestone blocks like some sort of artisan. Newsflash: you're not an artisan. You're just really good at not complaining loud enough to get noticed. The foreman claps his hands and waves you forward. Time to march. Your group trudges past the grain silos and onto the beaten path that leads up the hill toward the pyramid base. The sun crests over the horizon like it's showing off. A heat shimmer starts already, blurring the desert in waves. You squint. Is that a mirage? Nope. Just more rocks. On the way, you pass a group of children throwing palm fronds at each other, and a goat chewing on someone's laundry line. There's laughter in the air, brief and dry. Some moments feel weirdly normal, almost like a neighborhood. Almost. One guy in your group complains loudly that his cousin got assigned to haul water instead of rock. He just waves a fan and flirts with scribes all day, the man grumbles. You nod sympathetically, while imagining a life with less tendon damage. There's a rumor floating around that Pharaoh Sneferu's first pyramid collapsed partway through construction because someone messed up the math. Another guy says that's nonsense, that the collapse was intentional, part of a ritual. Historians still argue whether early pyramid disasters were structural accidents or part of sacred trial and error. Either way, you're not reassured. As the day truly begins, the pyramid looms in full view, massive and quiet, like a giant that fell asleep mid-sit-up. It's incomplete, sure, but already commanding. Its base stretches wider than a soccer field, and block by block, it's creeping toward the clouds. You can make out the temporary ramps sloping up its face, crawling like dusty veins. There are banners flapping in the hot breeze, bright reds and yellows with Horus eyes painted on them. Superstitious types say those eyes watch for laziness. You pretend not to care but still pick up your pace a little. Nearby, a priest murmurs over a brazier. He's sprinkling something that smells like burnt cinnamon, maybe frankincense, maybe something weirder. You're not close enough to tell, but you catch the glint of gold jewelry and the way everyone avoids making eye contact with him. The pyramid's main entrance is roped off, a gaping mouth in the stone wall that leads somewhere. Dark. Very few workers are allowed in there. That's where the chamber teams go. Specialists with tools you've never even seen. You, my friend, are strictly surface level. You carry, you chip, you sweat. That's your domain. Still, sometimes, when you walk close enough, you swear you can feel a breeze coming from that entrance. Cold air. From inside the pyramid. In the desert. Totally normal, right? Anyway, Welcome to work. Better pick up that chisel. Your eyes flutter open just before dawn. Not because you're rested. Oh no, don't be silly. But because someone dropped a pot nearby, and now two dogs are fighting over what fell out of it. Welcome to the workers' village. The air's cool for now, but it already carries the scent of dust, sweat, and smoke from dung fires. You sigh, stretch your aching limbs on the woven reed mat that serves as your bed, and smack a fly off your face. The hut you sleep in is barely wide enough for 3 people, but there are 5 of you crammed inside, snoring in staggered rhythms. The walls are made of mud brick, slightly cracked, and the roof is palm thatch, patched up with whatever fabric scraps you could find. It's not luxurious, but it's better than sleeping outside where the desert night can bite. You pull on your linen kilt, the same one you've worn all week. It's now a stiff, sweat-glued second skin. Breakfast is calling, so you stumble toward the communal mess area, stepping carefully over a passed-out neighbor and someone's extremely loud chicken. The morning meal is already being dished out. Lentils, again. Flatbread, again. And, of course, the lukewarm beer served in battered clay jugs. It's thick and slightly gritty, like someone tried to make a smoothie out of sadness and old barley. But it keeps your stomach lined and your head from feeling too light under the sun. So down it goes. You grab a seat on a low stone bench, half listening to the conversation buzzing around you. One of your neighbors, Tepi, is grumbling about a cut he got hauling limestone. Another claims he saw a scorpion the size of a cat. Clearly, exaggerating, but everyone still moves their feet up off the ground. Between bites, your eyes drift toward the edge of the village. The pyramid's outline is already visible in the lightening sky, a hulking silhouette with wooden scaffolding hugging its side like a spider web. It feels distant and massive and weirdly quiet, even though it's your job site, even though it's where you'll spend the next 10 hours. Fun historical fact to chew on with your lentils. The village you're in isn't a random cluster of huts. It's part of an organized complex built just for pyramid workers, complete with bakeries, fish drying racks, and surprisingly detailed record-keeping. Archaeologists found piles of ancient payroll stubs, basically. The pharaoh was big on spreadsheets, apparently. But it's not all cold efficiency. There are murals here and there, painted with ochre and charcoal. Scenes of Nile birds, sunboats, and jackal-headed gods. Some of them are weirdly specific, like the one near your hut that seems to show a man yelling at a goose. No one knows who painted it or why. Historians still argue whether these decorations were personal expressions, official propaganda, or just ancient graffiti. You finish eating just as the camp overseer walks by, his voice like a cracked whip. "Move! Work waits!" he barks, which is basically his version of good morning. You and the others rise, stretching and adjusting head wraps. You sling your tool satchel over one shoulder. It's light now, but by midday, everything will feel like lead.